Okay.
All right. So it's April 19th. Any questions, anybody?
Anybody?
Jay, you have any questions?
Yeah. I've always got questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you probably, this is probably maybe a silly question, but I didn't really catch, you had mentioned that we were going to choose 5 exercises to work on, and I wasn't sure what 5 exercises. I guess I just may not have been paying attention or something. I don't know what happened.
Whenever you miss something, I always have the slideshow and I post that so you could go back into it and see it.
Okay.
So we'll.
I didn't really think about it that it might be in there. So but yeah, thanks for reminding me.
So we looked at this website, Right Place, and saw a few examples. At the bottom of the page, it says, try these exercises.
Oh, okay.
And I think also on the slideshow, I had that link directly to the exercises.
Okay.
And I thought I said 5, but I may have said 10 because some people gave me 10. Do you guys remember? Well, some people gave me 5 and some people gave me 10. So I probably said it differently in different points.
I thought
I thought you said pick any 5.
That's what I thought, but a bunch of people gave me 10. So maybe, and I think it was people that weren't in the class. So I may have written it out differently. So we will talk about that. You can do them later too. I want to first make sure we go over the schedule.
Okay.
Oh, I wrote 5 as well. Well, I guess some people are just gluttons for punishment.
Yeah, like me.
So I want to make sure we got the schedule here. I have finally, after 1,000 years teaching online classes, and any class really, realized that the way to deal with changing schedules, and I know, let me say something about changing schedules. In theory, it's best for people to have a consistent schedule and know exactly what they're going to have to do. And it certainly is terrible to find out that to have a change that makes something earlier. But I find in teaching, because this is such a skills-based course, it's not like there's content, even though this is more content-oriented than other writing classes. It's not like there's really content that we have to cover, so to speak. And it's so tied to what people understand and need help with, et cetera. And so I'm always finding myself changing my schedule. My plan in January is too uninformed by what people turn in and have trouble with. And so I'm always having to make adjustments. And I finally figured out this semester that if I write it any of these changes in only one spot, the calendar itself, then I'm less likely to have confusing instructions for people. So this is why I've been adding the calendar at the beginning and end of every single one of these slideshows, and also in my announcements
Mhm.
so that you can see the specifics or changes that I've done. In this class, it wasn't so much changes, but it was the specifics of how we're doing the peer review. And we're not going to have class on Wednesday. Instead, I'm going to try to figure out how to put everybody into groups and deal with the always challenging issue of people's sharing access. So what I want you to do is share the paper as a Google Doc with me by Tuesday evening. Then I will create peer groups on Wednesday and provide the next set of instructions, which are basically, here's your group and this is the feedback that you have. And then the peer review should be done by the following Wednesday. And over next week, I will schedule individual conferences. They will probably be on Wednesday and Thursday. And whoops. And so you'll be turning it into me, getting some peer review, getting some review from me, and then completing the final one by Sunday, May 2nd, which is the night before the last day of class. And I guess I do expect to have class on that last day to try to put a peroration on the class. What is a peroration, I ask? This is not a rhetorical question. It is about
Is
writing.
it's an open book question?
It's an open book question.
It's like
What's a peroration? Anna, are you talking?
Yeah, it's like
Oh, okay.
it's like a conclusion.
It's like a conclusion. It is the Greek term for that, for conclusion in the classical structure. Okay, questions about the schedule?
I just wanted to make a remark about it if I could, just quickly.
Yes.
Yeah, if you, I think the way you've done the schedule is great. And if you just make it clear at the beginning of the semester that it's a dynamic document, it'll work just fabulously like it has for us this semester.
Okay.
And I really appreciate all the changes that you've made. They've all been like really helpful changes. And so that's all I really had to say.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just
thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm a slow learner, I've been finding out.
Join the club. You're not as slow as me, though.
Well, I really have to think about how something works. I'm just not very good at planning in advance and figuring out the best way to do something in advance. I have to kind of see what happens and then figure out what I should have done. It's like what we all do when we're in an argument.
Right.
I figure out all the things I should have said later.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And I will definitely make that point when I start the next time I teach it.
Yeah.
I thought you guys might be interested, maybe not. I'm going to, I will share this with you, but as I brought up this whole issue of the modalities of online teaching. And so I'm going to do a motion at the Faculty Senate, which is the last Friday in April. And I had to get it to the executive committee, which I'm on anyway, but by Friday. So I wrote it, finished it. So as I was writing it, I kept thinking about Lanham's paramedic method. So I made so many little slight editing changes to make it more concise and less wordy, and also sometimes more parallel. That's really what often happened. This is talk about genres. You know, the motion genre is there's variation, but the ones that we do in our Faculty Senate are the ones that sort of start with some whereases. The whereases provide reasons for the motion. And then after the therefore is the motion itself. Because of the whereases, that forces you into parallelism. So I was really conscious of my parallelism, et cetera. And one of the things that happened as I was writing this is I had more whereases and I tried to consolidate them. Like, for example, I had two different separate ones talking about program flexibility and then use of faculty resources. And I had to really tinker with it to get them together because I needed them to be parallel. So I wanted requiring programs to always offer asynchronous may reduce a program's flexibility as well as its ability. So I had to come up with a way of saying this parallelly for it. And similarly, on this one, I had two separate ones, and I had to create a parallel structure. So any of these conjunctions, so all of these clauses are parallel, and then any of them that have coordinate conjunctions within them are parallel, and you can double check me and see if I've made any errors. So then the actual motion is that to change it so that asynchronous is not the standard for non-use sections, but rather that we can do both. And this is the thing that's so, that's really driving the administrative concern that fully online, whether if some of the non-use students may not be able to do synchronous,
Right.
which is of course true. And so therefore, if a program is offering a fully online program, like the BA in professional and technical writing, we also have to come up with a sort of a long-term plan, which we've done anyway, for to make sure that both the on-campus and the online students have basically a pathway to graduation. And we had to do that to begin with when we weren't really doing synchronous courses, because we had to do that in terms of online and on campus. And I would say it's not easy because it's just hard, it's just a challenging scheduling thing, but it's not impossible. So that's the thing. And then this, well, this is probably going to be controversial, but I don't think this decision should have been made by the Division of E-Learning. I think it should have been made by the Faculty Senate to begin with. So I may have to delete that just because it's too much. And then part of this genre that we always do is we always provide a commentary. Now, the thing about the commentary is it gets lost. And so does the asynchronous, the whereases. Not, once we create a policy, only the policy is there in the policy. And the whereases and the commentary, they are temporary. They're part of the kairos, so they're part of the argument. But then the policy itself has to stand alone. So as you see, all of these concepts of rhetoric play into every little piece of writing that you do, whether trivial or not.
I've got a
Anyway,
question about that.
what?
I've
Yeah.
got a quick question about that. All the whereases and the context, that still remains a matter of record in like the minutes of the meeting though, right?
Oh yeah, the minutes are permanent.
Yeah.
And now that everything's online, I mean, it's been online for a while. I mean, the internet only came about really pretty practically in the 90s. And I was working as an administrator all through the 80s and 90s. And, everything was just paper backups. And once we developed once the internet developed, now we can have minutes everywhere. And in fact, it is a public meeting, so it's all free and open to see.
That was nice.
So if you ever want to see what we're doing, which is several people have called it beating a dead horse every Friday afternoon. So it's not necessarily the most interesting thing in the world, but so here's the Senate website. We have the Constitution, we have the archives, and then each year, completed legislation, agenda, minutes, and reports. And, we go through that and we keep track of it all. Notice here's the Zoom thing. The meetings are totally open. And in the real world, we usually have them in the Donaghy Student Center. We usually have the final one of the year, this April one, in the Legends building, Legends meeting room over in the Jack Stevens Arena, where we can drink alcohol. So usually the last one is this long one that goes on forever, but we're drinking during it.
Uh-oh.
Well, that's why we have it. It's over in the Legends thing, which is which is like an alumni room for Jack Stevens. Anyway.
That's good to know.
What?
That's good to know.
Right. And so right now we have the assembly meeting agenda, but after a meeting tomorrow, we'll have the we'll have the Senate meeting. So back to what we're talking about. I have not yet reviewed the quizzes on, well, no, I think I have graded them. I have lost track. I will send a notice about that on Blackboard. So we're working with style still, and we're going to also talk today about revision. Here's the paramedic method. Here is the exercises. This is a 30-minute video, so it's pretty long, but it's really very helpful, and he gives great examples. So I encourage you to watch that if you have a chance. Okay, so I said, work on some exercises. And people sent me them by email and also by the asynchronous quiz. So I went through and picked out a few to talk about. So here's one. Even when the sun is hidden and the sky is speckled with stars, the heat lingers, hanging motionless in the air. So just as a general thing, what did you guys feel about this sentence? Or what do you feel about this sentence?
It definitely had a lot going on, like a lot of different actions and descriptions happening, you know, and just
Yeah. So one way to completely Lanhamize it or parameticize it is to change it to, even at night, the air feels hot. Actually, there's another addition you could make that would make it even more Lanhamized. One of the rules in his method is to get rid of slow starts. Start fast, meaning don't start with a phrase or a subordinate clause or something. Start with the subject and the verb and let all these modifications trail at the end. So a possibility would be,
So the air feels hot even at night. Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
certainly a possibility. One of the things that happens is if you start slow, it slows it down. And where did we talk about slowing down? In what context? Where you might want to slow down?
Like for emphasis.
For emphasis, for that presence idea. So one of the things to keep in mind is that we're not talking about absolute rules. We're talking about strategies that you use to make your point as effective as possible. And there may be times when his approach is the best approach. There may be times when it's not. The key is you should know enough so that you can choose to make the choices. So one person, basically all I did was copy all the things that people gave me and then cut and paste it back in here. There's a variety of different strategies that people had. This is the most brief. And then here were a few less brief ones where the sun is hidden, the sun hides, and the car is probably speckled the sky. Even when the sun hides and the stars speckle the sky, the heat lingers in the air. So both of those are there. Speckle is definitely a active verb. Sparkle the sky. Sparkle may not be a verb that can be take a direct object, but why might you want to do something like that? They sparkle the sky. I mean, that's probably not grammatically correct.
It kind of follows alliteration, like stars sparkle. It's typically more found in poetry, but
yeah, I mean, so this is definitely a poetic line, the whole line to begin with. And one of the most important points about style is that decorum idea or appropriateness. That is, it has to be appropriate for the context. So if this is a technical report, that probably is not an appropriate way to write it. If this is a poem, it might be appropriate to do it. This last one is the example of shifting to, starting fast, getting the main clause up front and having trailing modifiers. And we could even how can we make the verbs here active? Well, I guess we could use the strategies used over here. So,
when the sun hides.
right. And the sky sparkles. So sparkle and speckle are interesting verbs that kind of interactive. You can't really sparkle a direct object. You can speckle a direct object. And so anyway.
It seems like sparkle the sky, that's sort of like sparkling the sky with a, like, almost like painting sparkles in the sky or something.
It's,
And
and so
makes
it's kind of metaphoric.
Yeah.
And,
Poetic.
in poetry, creative nonfiction, people often will take a word and use it in a slightly unusual way for emphasis, for the image of that the metaphor provides. Like, you even physically moved when you said it's like painting sparkling. As an aside, you notice my new blurred background that doesn't make everything all weird around the edges. Zoom has upgraded their backgrounds, and they now have something that is called blur in their standard backgrounds. And
really
if you can figure out how you can, where the update is, it took me contacting IT services to find it. But there is somewhere that you can update your Zoom. The most recent Zoom gives you that option.
It seems like it brings you forward in the picture. And
yeah, it's because it's putting this blur. Yeah, and it's a lot more professional than most of the backgrounds.
And
so
it makes the colors that you're intending to protect, it makes them more prominent, and it's got better contrast.
And as I said, rhetorically, I think it's a more rhetorically appropriate thing for a class than showing my messy office or a background that is not working as well as it should. So here was one that several people picked. And I thought this was interesting because everybody came up with a slightly different one. And notice all these nouns and prepositions. The quality level television shows, children, of course, watch. So there's a nice verb, is, but then it was linking all these nouns together, nouns and prepositions together with an is verb. A continuing is a challenge to parents that they must meet on a daily basis. So here's an option. Minding the shows that children watch is a daily challenge for parents. Of course, that still has that is verb. but minding is kind of a nice verb that kind of controls the quality and level of shows that children watch.
How could you start that with children watch? Is there a way to start it like that?
I don't know. What do you think? Well, I think that shows you the confusion that happens when you have this. It's not really clear who's kicking whom. What is the real subject of this? Who's kicking whom? Who is this mainly about, and what verb is this mainly about?
Controlling.
Yeah, but who is this mainly about?
Parents.
Yeah. It's either the parents or the children. I guess that's debatable. It seems like probably the parents, but then the parents are about the children. So
Yeah, but I think it's mainly about this challenge the parents face.
yeah.
So parents are continually concerned about the quality and level of television shows that children watch. So basically, this is sort of a passive construction. So it's what do the parents do? Controlling the quality and level of television. So that's the verb. And who is doing it? It's parents. So, that step of who's kicking whom, sometimes it's hard to tell, really. I mean, the exercises, most of them were pretty easy, but some of the more challenging ones, you do have to kind of work through who's in charge, who's the one that it's about. So this one still keeps that passive construction. And this sort of changes it into a little bit more active, but it's kind of not really, but because it's meet the challenge rather than, whatever. On the other hand, there's different things to say. So this one is the most Lanhamized. Parents must control the television shows that their children watch every day. I mean, that comes out as this autocratic thing. What concept is missing from the original sentence?
The challenge.
Yeah. So that it's not so much that they must do it, but it's hard to figure it out. And, maybe something like parents have to consider the quality and level of television shows every day that their children watch.
Yeah, that sounds more active.
It's a little less autocratic.
Yeah.
Is there an active verb we could use for meet the challenge? The challenge isn't available as an active verb, is it? So that would be kind of the issue there. Now, when we talk about passive voice, there is often this suggestion that we should avoid passive voice, and that's the implication of Richard Lanham's idea of getting rid of all the to be verbs, because passive voice forces you into using the past participle of a verb plus the to be verb. But sometimes you want the passive voice. So these sort of left structuring sentences, that have these clauses that point you to something are sometimes exactly what you want in the context of the text. So you might be writing, in the results of a survey, not everyone knew that it was the governor who signs or vetoes bills. And if, let's say, you had a question, who is it that signs or vetoes bills? You can answer it by the governor signs or vetoes bills. But when you do this left-leaning kind of structure that requires the passive voice, the sentence ends with the new information that you're trying to convey. So there could be a very good reason why you want the sentence to actually have this, it is the governor who signed, so that there's this emphasis on it, or the decision, that you really want to focus on the decision and you're less interested in who, or that, you want to start slow and provide some sort of modification or modulation before you get to your point. That said, lots of times, I know I do it, and especially in speaking, because when I'm speaking, I'm thinking at the same time. And so if I put this meaningless sort of stuff in there, I believe that gives me a few moments to clarify what I believe before it comes out. And but when you're writing, you have the time to go in and cross off everything, like in that video. So these ones I picked out because I thought following the paramedic method helps you really see the parallelism in the sentence. So their motives were applauded by us, but their wisdom was doubted. I mean, that's one that the passive voice doesn't sound that great. And it's in a parallel form, but if you change it to active, you get rid of the to be and you get rid of the preposition. We applauded their motives and doubted their wisdom. So it's not only more active, but the parallelism really kind of makes it sharper. And, this opposition between applauding and doubting, and applauding their motives and doubting their wisdom, it comes out really nice. This one I thought was interesting because it is in the passive voice, but it still is parallel, but maybe and the revision is still in a parallel form. Even though it's not conjunction, it's not conjoined, it's subordinated. I will contact the Better Business Bureau if you fail to settle my claim. And you see a lot of times something like, I will contact the Better Business Bureau if my claim is not settled by April 21st. There's nothing grammatically wrong with that, but it doesn't have the sort of precision that a parallel structure of two active verbs would have. And then this one, there was a bonfire going and some music playing in the background, but not very many people were dancing. And this is a construction that I use all the time. I'm always doing the present progressive tense of verbs, the to be form plus ing. I'm not sure why. I mean, it's just a natural thing that I do. And so I've been consciously trying to go back and only use the ing, was or is plus ing when I really want to. And you can see how, especially when describing a set of actions, a bonfire burned and music played, but few people danced. That, gives it a much more crisp kind of thing. I remember when I taught sections that were entirely for English as a second language speakers who were pretty much early on in their learning of English, they loved the ing forms of verbs because that way they only needed to know how to conjugate the to be verb, so they just add the ing to every verb. But and then this one really shows a nice parallelism, and it gives me a chance to talk about an absolute construction, which is really cool. There are people that have the impression that Spanish is our first language and English is a second. So this is an example of, starting too slow. The there are or this is, all those kinds of constructions rarely help in your writing. There may be some reasons why you want to use it, but often if you can figure out a way to start more actively, that'll be better. So people think that Spanish is our first language and English is our second. So there is something called an absolute construction, where you delete, you usually have to have, it works with a parallelism to begin with. People think that Spanish is our first language and English our second. So it's totally clear what the verb is, and so you can delete it. See if there's any. You could do it with this one. There was a bonfire going and some music playing in the background, but not very many people were dancing. Just delete the is, but not very many people dancing. I'd probably delete the people. And when I was fortunate enough when I was a junior in college to spend a semester in England, where I got to attend the University of London, sort of. And I was working with a faculty member there about writing something. And he had this really pet peeve. He said, "You Americans, you always think you can throw adjectives in everywhere you go. I want you to go in and delete every adjective that you do. You don't need them." And it turns out he's usually right. There was a bonfire going and music playing. There was a bonfire going and music playing, but not many dancing. I didn't even delete in the background. And you don't need commas. There was a bonfire going and music playing, but not many dancing. just to. And this is another. So the rest of these I didn't. Anyway, this is all just ideas to think about as you're writing. I think the paramedic method, the reason why I like it so much is it's very simple, and it covers a variety of things at the same time. And, you know, it just gives you a strategy. I mean, you all here try to be more or less wordy, try to be more precise, more concise, more active. But this gives you a very concrete strategy to do that. Like I said, it might start, you know, irritating you in your mind because everything you write, you might start tinkering with. But over time, it'll become so natural that you know, you don't have to think through those rules. Somebody in the quiz, I think it might have been Heather, said that when she took 3301 style and editing, they learned a lot about concision and all these things. And she had a class with Tammy Scaife for that. Is that who most of you guys took for style and editing, if you've taken it yet?
I took that same class.
Well,
semester.
Heather said she doesn't remember if Tammy talked about style and edit, paramedic method, but when I was searching in YouTube for good videos to watch, I found a video that she actually made about the paramedic method. So sometimes she teaches it, and I guess it just depends on which semester. Has everybody taken?
Yeah, it was Tammy Scaife. She's great.
Has everybody taken the required course?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's that other teacher that the only other one that I've ever had that does like video lectures.
Yeah, so she did a paramedic video lecture. Yeah, Tammy's great. Tammy got her master's degree here at ULR in professional technical writing. And then she became a teacher here. So that's something when you guys graduate, you all might consider. We're always trying to recruit great students.
I think I would like that.
Yeah, you can be like me, go to school for the rest of your life.
Why not? Yeah.
That's hey, that's my life. Okay. All right. Any last questions or comments about style for the moment? I was going to send everybody I was going to work with a nice essay that I read about in the New York Times called "We Have Hit the Wall," which has a lot of nice stylistic things in it. And we don't have time, but I will be sending it out to you, and I'll be interested to hear if you find it interesting. It was an interesting piece because I really liked it, but then I started looking at all the comments. There are a lot of comments showing people that hated it. So I thought that was just interesting. You know, the style is so different. Okay. So here's where we're going to start talking about the revision that I'd like you to do.
Okay.
And I don't see. Must have used up my link to Blackboard. Nope. Always clicking too fast. So I will add a link to the navigation. I've added the last module. And here's the table of contents. So here's a general thing. And then there, so this is, the first thing is the overall instructions. And then within this module, there are a variety of videos or websites. And we are going to use, or I'm going to ask you to use, some material called the Eli review method, describe, evaluate, suggest. Have any of you ever heard this? Of this?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it either.
This is part of the this new thing. I wanted to change the audio before we start listening. Huh. Oh well.
This oceanside verbo is about to become the backdrop for an unforgettable vacation memory. One of the rare moments when kids just let themselves be kids again.
All right, I hope you can hear this well enough.
Yeah.
Describe, evaluate, suggest. I guess that's my go-to heuristic for teaching quality feedback. And I often joke that it's also what makes all relationships successful. You do this when you're talking with the person that you live with, whether it's your roommate or your partner. Your life would be a lot better if you don't jump right to that evaluative moment, that you linger for a moment to describe what you see or describe what you hear. So good feedback begins by providing the person you're giving feedback to with a reality check to say, okay, here's what I'm seeing. As a writer, that's the first thing I want to know. Did I convey what I was trying to convey? I was trying to sketch this image of the Grand Canyon the first time I saw it. Did I convey the emotional heft that I felt when I was standing at the Grand Canyon? That's prior to making a judgment where you say, that's great, or that's not so good. Then when it comes to that evaluative moment, that's the second step. Describe first, evaluate the second, and to set that up, establish first what you agree on before you go ahead and make the judgment. And that is the criteria that you'll use. So there, if you imagine being in the car with your roommate and you're determining where to go for dinner, that's always an easy decision. If you first establish some criteria, any judgment after that doesn't seem like a judgment of the person. It seems like a judgment of the thing that you're trying to improve or that you're trying to help them with. So don't say, ooh, I hate tacos. You would say, well, if a healthy choice is our objective, perhaps we should avoid tacos. Those not being so healthy. And so already you've made your advice more palatable, regardless of the tacos. And then finally, the act that really, I think, helps feedback become maximally useful or helpful, as we like to call it in Eli, really boosts your helpfulness rating, is offering advice, offering a way for the writer to make an improvement in what they're doing. You can offer advice even if what you see is good, even if you've rendered a value judgment that something is positive. The advice is, do that again, or I see a way that you could do something similar over here. But of course, advice is always helpful when you find something not measuring up to the criteria. If you can offer a way to improve, to get closer to that goal, you'll be seen as not just simply sitting back and rendering judgment, but lending a hand. And that's what being helpful is all about. So we want to try to, when I teach feedback, that's the virtuous cycle, if you will, that I try to get people to adhere to. Describe what you see, share the criteria by which you would make a judgment, offer an evaluation, and then offer some helpful advice about how to make an improvement. And you'll be seen as a better person.
Oh dear. So the Eli review, it's actually more than, it's actually a whole software system where if a university subscribes to it, you know, they have the software that allows them to, you know, post comments, and then they evaluate the comments. But we don't subscribe, and actually I'm not sure that that whole big apparatus is necessary. But they have a lot of open access resources about feedback and revision. And so that's what I've included in the course module. But this
I
is
see where you're going with this now.
So this is what I would like to recommend that you do in giving feedback to each other. And so we talked a little bit about whether you're going to get feedback from me as well as from each other. And I want you to, I think, you know, because you're all advanced students, you really are positioned to give very good feedback to each other, and you don't necessarily need me, although
I don't know about that.
But one of the reasons why maybe students are not always as clear about, you know, what kind of feedback to do is they feel like they're, you know, they have to know so much, and, you know, they don't really know what kinds of things to say. So one of the things I like about the Eli method is that they say, tie it to the criteria. I mean, tie it to the criteria of what you're being asked to do. So one of the differences often between students and faculty is that the faculty person has the criteria in their mind, and they've been working with it their whole lives. And so, you know, they know what they're looking for. And so in this situation, what we want to do is make sure we are aware of what the criteria are. Hopefully this will so how do you find the criteria for any assignment? Well, within Blackboard, there are these rubrics. And so what I did is I went to my grades, and then I looked at what the rhetorical analysis was, and then I clicked on the rubric. So here's the rubric for a rhetorical analysis. And this is not that surprising, but considers the rhetorical situation, i.e. purpose, audience, form, medium, genre of the piece of rhetoric, and considers the argumentation, i.e. the enthymemes, tuum, and pisces of the piece of rhetoric. And then in the rubric, considers all or most aspects of the rhetorical situation of the piece of rhetoric. So you don't have to cover everything, but you have to be aware of the rhetorical situation and the argumentation. I guess that needs to be. So this was the version I gave for the earlier, earlier on in the semester. I'll edit this to be a little more appropriate for the end of the semester. And then, of course, everything is language and style, so. And the way I describe it is in this way. And then I have tiny little things that bug me or that I'm asking for from you, like the technology and formatting. So you can point out that the file is not titled appropriately and submits on time. You don't have to worry about that. But that's what I have in mind when I say, take a look at the criteria and use that to guide the types of feedback you have. And then, of course, you have this idea that he is suggesting of instead of jumping right into judgment, just describe what you see. So say what you see as a reader. So let's say you're looking at the rhetorical analysis and you don't really see any discussion of the rhetorical situation. But you see a lot of good discussion of the argument and the logic and whatever's going on. So you say, look, I see a lot of interesting discussion about the logic, and but the criteria say something about also talking about the rhetorical situation. And I don't see anything about rhetorical situation. Is there some way you could add that into it? And you can get more specific too, if when you're reading the rhetorical analysis, saying things like, I see a start of discussion of the rhetorical situation, but I'm still kind of confused about, the timing and the genre of this piece. Could you explain it a little bit more? So the criteria give you topics to look at. And as he said, they suggest that you are evaluating the piece according to criteria rather than evaluating the person. And then that describing, evaluate, suggesting model kind of hides the evaluation in the middle and tempers the negative stuff, again, by framing it as according to the criteria rather than the other. Questions? And I will by Wednesday clarify, I will actually probably provide the rubrics for these pieces in a PDF, so you don't have to go wander around Blackboard to find it. Um, So here's this first file in the unit. And the overall instructions. And then in this unit, I have a couple things to assist in the process. I really like this concept about changing your mindset from feedback to feed forward. That is, you're not so much judging what happened, but thinking about what to do next. And I think that's a really cool thing to think about revising and feedback. A video from MIT's writing program on peer review called No One Writes Alone, Peer Review in the Classroom. This includes student comments about peer review and feedback. And then several resources related to this Eli review model. And then a final motivational video. This one about revision in other disciplines like architecture or business. And here are some logistics. Provide a cover memo that because the people reading it in your group may have never seen this before. So give a cover memo explaining anything that's needed. Provide necessary context to your groups. Oh, I need to re-articulate this. You don't have to have synchronous groups, but you could actually. You could create a Zoom meeting, and if you don't have if you only have the free version of Zoom that only allows, I think, a 40-minute meeting with more than 2 people, you can ask me to create a Zoom meeting for you. Possibly, it just depends on whether everybody in the group can meet at the same time. But what I'm expecting is that you do your feedback by comments on the Google Doc, and then the final version is a Google Doc. So this is the joy of getting feedback, is the feedback feed forward one. This is the MIT video. This goes to that Eli review thing. There's a lot of stuff in here, you are welcome to read. But don't worry, this doesn't cost anything. I gave some examples that came out of the Eli review material.
Good.
This is some that I did, and it was for another class, a different kind of assignment, but it's just to give you examples of what this is all about. That seems to be a second copy of the same thing. Problem with reusing sources from other. And then this is a video that was actually in the Eli review about revision. Since the whole point of feedback is to move towards revision. Okay, so see the Blackboard resources in the unit. Double check the schedule, make sure you have that. You understand where we're going. Follow this Eli review model. Locate rubrics. I will provide them by Wednesday, and then practice framing comments, which we don't have time for, but I think you can handle. Okay, so questions. Everybody know where we are? So share your Google Doc version of the paper you chose to submit and polish with me by tomorrow night. Expect on Wednesday to hear from me about which group you're in and the logistics for getting the papers to each other. Most of the logistics is actually in that learning module where I'm asking you to comment on the papers using the commenting tool in Google Docs. Optionally, you can set up some kind of group get together if it's not too complicated. And then work towards revising it for the next step. Questions? Okay. What day is it? Monday, April 19th. You only have 2 more weeks of the semester.
Wow.
Can you believe it? It goes so slow at the beginning and so fast at the end. Is anybody in this group graduating? I know Micah is, but she can't come to our classes anymore. Aaliyah, you are graduating. Congratulations. Did you go to one of these virtual graduation things?
No.
No. Yeah, that's one area I think maybe they haven't quite figured out, but they're trying real hard to make it a big deal. They had people, the students, did you go record something? You know, like walking across the stage?
No.
No. I wonder how many people have done. They asked for faculty to go in their, you know, academic robes and get recorded. I didn't do that either, so. Last year, I participated in the Phi Kappa Phi. It's an honor association. And usually we have some big to-do for the graduating seniors, you know, in person. And so last year we did a recorded one, which it was kind of nice. And then we set up a drive-through pickup for everybody's medallion and thing over in the Big Lots parking lot. It was, I guess this was in December. It was kind of chilly that day, but it was kind of fun, but it wasn't very meaningful. Okay, any questions? I will tell Dr. Scaife. People were talking about her
Yeah.
And she should have had her ears tingling. What is the sound? Not the ear. Whatever.
The ears burning or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell her that you guys all spoke highly of her.
Okay.
All right. So I won't see you on Wednesday, but expect to see text from me explaining what to do in terms of peer review.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.